Did they ever do an ultrasound?
They did one in Mexico, but I was younger, like 2 years younger than them, and like, cause I was showing the same symptoms, and they didn't really see anything. But I mean, I could have developed cysts afterwards.
So you got diagnosed without,
like, actually, like
actual
cysts.
That's strange, but I think I don't know very many people that have this kind of symptoms.
Yeah.
Without it being PCOS. I don't know of anybody that has a set of symptoms.
But then also the other thing is some people, they don't show the cysts as much in ultrasounds either. So like for some people it isn't as noticeable.
Right.
So like
well,
I could have had them and I could have not seen them.
Yeah, as you get older it might show up more.
So and when I was telling them there was something wrong with me, I kept telling them, well, I've been bleeding this long, and I told them I hadn't had my period for 5 months, and they said, we don't get concerned about it until it's been 6 months without a period. I'm like, but I've been on my period for 3 months. He said, well, that's not really that abnormal or whatever, and I was like, okay. So then finally they believed me, and then the doctor said that I needed to go on birth control. And they told me all these things, and then they said that if I didn't go on birth control, I was going to develop uterine cancer eventually.
But birth control will give you other junk.
Yeah. So I just took it, and I was like, well, it's going to regulate me, so it's going to be fine. So I was on birth control for literally until right before, no, I was still on birth control after I got married for a couple months. So I've been off it for about 9 months.
So what kind of effects did you have from birth control, if anything?
Actually, while I was on birth control, so what was interesting is they kept having to change my birth control because my body would adapt to the hormones. So like it would notice that I was off of my normal, and like honestly going on the hormones, it would just, I would have a period of just like depression and like horrible feelings for like a couple weeks. Then I'd get balanced out, and then I'd be great. And then once my hormones would be like, oh, we're doing better than this, so they like my testosterone would go way up again, and like so I would like tolerate it and like adapt to it. So then they'd have to up my dose of female hormones, or it was mainly progesterone, not estrogen. So then they tried different birth controls, and then I couldn't really use all types of birth control because you have to have estrogen and progesterone, just because you have to have both of the hormones in order for your body to function normally. Yeah. So it was very confusing to me, and then and I would get I would bleed through it, and it was just, my body was just not taking it well. So then finally, since when we got married, I decided to go off it, and also I heard all these stories of people that would go on it and then they wouldn't be regular for another 2 or 3 years because the hormones would screw them up so badly. So I got off that in hopes of getting pregnant at some point. So now my body's all screwed up, and I've been on my period for 2 months now.
Yay!
So we'll see when it ends.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about misdiagnoses, so I was first brought in, my situation is a little bit different because in my upbringing, my family didn't talk about female stuff. And so when I got my period, I actually had my period for 2 years until I was 10 years old before my mom knew. And so she kind of knew when my sister's period was, and she knew her own, and then she saw used products in the garbage, and she's like, Priscilla, is this from you? And I said, yes. And she was surprised because I was 10 and I already had my period, but I was like, no, I actually got it 2 years ago when my sister was 10. She got hers and I got mine basically at the same time. And so she said, how did you know? And I said, my sister told me. So I knew like what to use and how to take care of it at that point. And so when I had all these hormonal issues, my mom was, well, we were both completely oblivious. I had no idea that it wasn't normal because we didn't talk about it. And so I just kind of dealt with it, and I was embarrassed. So I don't really want to tell anybody anything about periods because that was stuff you didn't talk about. And so it wasn't until I started sleeping for like every spare moment I was sleeping, and my mom had a hard time just getting me to do anything, and she started to get kind of upset because she thought I was just going into a depression or something like that. And I finally told her, Mom, I've had my period for 6 months. And she kind of freaked out, and we went to the doctor, and the doctor, that was when I was 14 or 15, I think it was 15. And the doctor said, oh, this is normal, you'll grow out of it. And of course that was 14, 15, that was in the 90s, early 90s. And so that, they probably wouldn't have known anything about it, so I give them that pass. But they should have asked me when I actually started my period, and I don't think they ever did, because if they had put into their minds, I started my period when I was 8, so 7 years had passed that I had my period. I wasn't like I wasn't a kid who had just gotten her period. I wasn't somebody who had just started puberty. This had been a long time, and this was regularly happening, and so they should have known something was not right. I don't know if they would have known what to do at that point, but I was repeatedly told things like this by different doctors that really just didn't want to find out. So even after I got diagnosed finally by a doctor who said, oh, you have what we call PCOS, and I was like, huh? And so then, and there was not, at that point, there wasn't like a lot of internet that I could research. There's not what there is today, YouTube and other such things. And so that information was just not out there. So I was put on birth control when I was a teenager, and that made me gain a huge amount of weight. Huge amount being like 40 or 50 pounds. And that is one of the big symptoms too, is PCOS. There seems to be like two extremes. There's either people who are quite thin and in some cases can't gain weight and they're underweight. And then there's people like us who get belly fat primarily, but get fat all over. But we are apple shaped, so we get a lot of excess midsection.
I actually don't get that much belly fat. Well, like now, but when I gain weight, it goes everywhere else, and then when I start getting belly fat, it's like when I've already gained like 30 pounds.
Oh, okay.
So it's like the last thing that grows in me. So that is different.
But when you used to be that, you were kind of small, but like the only thing that was kind of big on you besides your boobs was your gut.
Well, that's because other thing is I'm always like my abdomen is always like distended, so I'm always like bloated, like constantly.
I think there's some of that too. I think a lot of what we talk about belly fat is not necessarily just fat. I think it's just because I've had digestive system issues and stuff like that.
And that's another thing, because hormones, especially female hormones, are very closely related to your digestive system. So like even when you're pregnant or going through ovulation, like some people like get diarrhea and some people get constipated depending on your hormone levels. So with ours, like they change a lot and they're like really unbalanced, so then that screws up with that too. So I'm constantly bloated and have really weird digestive stuff.
Fun. Yeah, me too. But I have not really equated it to that. So anyway.
Well, I learned that in nursing school.
See,
so when you're pregnant, actually, because of all the hormonal changes, some people are constipated and some people have diarrhea, depending on how they're affected by their hormones. So
there you go. Hormones are related to your digestive system. Okay.
They're related to literally everything.
Oh yeah. Well, I know because every part of my body is affected by this, basically. So, all right. So yeah, misdiagnoses, and that was kind of the same thing where you're kind of, and even now, like somebody should give you an ultrasound and check and see what they.
I haven't been to the doctor for over a year.
You know, this whole thing has really developed in me a disdain for doctors. So I've had doctors put me on 1,100 calorie a day diet and insist that the only way for me to get any help for this was I must lose weight. Well, it took me basically almost passing out at work and being, I wasn't rushed in, but very quickly people were like, no, you need to go see a doctor. So I went to see a doctor, and a different doctor, I think it was a different doctor. And they asked, like, what was I eating? I'm like, well, I'm on this diet. And they're like, why? I said, well, the guy said that's the only way I can control this. So I have found almost inevitably that female doctors are much more understanding. I have not had any luck with a male doctor in this. They just don't have a clue.
Female, so.
Yeah, they don't have any clue about. I mean, it's like male doctors, the ones I have had, and I know there's got to be some good ones out there, but I haven't found them. The ones I have had always make the conclusion that because I am fat, that's why I have PCOS. And I can't get them to understand. I was thin when I started these problems. I was normal size when I had started these problems. And so I'm not fat because I don't have PCOS because I'm fat. I'm fat because I have PCOS. And with PCOS, weight gain is a much bigger issue, and much more difficult to take off weight with PCOS than it is for normal people. So that is one of the big problems, is people just jump to this, well, if you just lost weight, you wouldn't have this problem. Well, it is almost impossible to lose the weight when you have PCOS. Like, literally almost impossible.
And it's very easy to gain the weight.
Yeah, and you don't even have to do anything to gain the weight, because it's not what you eat, and it's not exercise that makes you gain weight. It's your hormones, and it's your stress levels that make you gain weight, because we are very sensitive to stress. And so
it makes us stress eaters as well. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really I've never been really much of a stress eater or emotional eater.
I am.
But I know a lot of people are.
Well, since I am, I gained weight, but like I've never really had the problem where I'll like gain weight steadily or anything like that. Like even when I was on birth control, I never really gained weight because of it. So I never really had a problem with weight, except for when I was in nursing school. Then it was too much stress for me, and I was eating really bad, was not exercising at all, literally sitting and studying constantly, not sleeping, which is also very important to be able to lose weight. So I gained about 30 pounds, and then I literally have tried almost everything to lose weight, and the only thing that helped me, and I was not trying to lose weight, I was fasting for about a week or even like 5 days, and I lost 5 pounds, and I kept them off. So that was the one thing that like made me lose weight. Besides that, I've walked, I've exercised, and I've eaten less, and I've tried literally everything. People will tell you, oh, I cut this out and this out and this out. And I've literally done everything, and it does not work.
Yeah, that's interesting talking about fasting, because I went on a liquid fast for 40 days. My sister and I did it like a long time ago. I was probably like 18. And I lost 10 pounds in 40 days. You're supposed to lose a pound a day when you fast.
Yeah.
And it just wouldn't come off. My sister turned to skin and bones. We did it for spiritual reasons, but not for weight loss. But it was just really bizarre to me that...
Well, that's why I was doing it too.
I lost only 10 pounds in 40 days of... It was all juice and like sugar-free juice and all of that. I'm natural, not sugar-free, because you can't have sugar-free juice, but all natural juice, no added sugars and whatnot. And then... For like 1 week of it, I had a protein supplement that somebody got for me because they were concerned I was going to get sick. And I was actually fine with that fast. That was interesting. And I think that's because the sugar in the juice, because we also have all of the issues with the insulin. And so I think the sugar in the juice helped to keep me going, so I didn't feel weak like I did with the other diet where I was just not getting enough sugar. Yeah, so in that, because it was a juice fast, I was not constantly, but several times a day drinking juice, and it was keeping me healthy. So yeah, so that was rather interesting.